Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 116 of the Walking Dead TV podcast. I'm Jordan from Jersey, and I'm joined tonight by a whole bunch of people. We've got Jim Dietz, we've got Aaron Newworth, we've got Russell Latham, and we have not only Brad Milo, but his daughter Ashley as well. How is everybody doing?
Great. Doing well here in Texas.
Fantastic.
Good. I didn't hear Jim, but...
Oh, hello, I'm sorry. I was busy enjoying some of this delicious Terminus barbecue. Do you guys want some?
Pass it
It's
on.
really good, man. I mean, it's just like...
I'll take some dark meat, Jim.
Yeah, you got it, man. No problem. There's a whole bunch here.
As long as you have some Soylent Green Dividend.
Is there a wing?
Oh, sure.
So yes, we are here to discuss episode 416 of The Walking Dead A, and we'll be doing that in just a minute. Beforehand, let's just get a round from everybody. What did you think of the season finale of season 4?
Brad will start, and Brad will say that Brad is going to be very bipolar about this. In fact, you should all refer to me as Harvey for the duration of the recording of this episode, because I'm going to be very two-faced about this episode. As a Batman reference for the uninitiated.
So Brad, you're bipolar about it. What about your daughter?
More or less the same.
Fair enough. Aaron?
I actually really like this episode with a couple demerits I would give it, but besides I think it's a solid finale.
Are you going to wrap its knuckles and make it stand in the corner?
I'm going to hit it with a meter stick, that's for damn sure.
Russell?
I honestly thought this was maybe the best episode of the series to date.
Wow.
It just fired on all cylinders for me, and there's just a lot of really cool things that made it work. And I've said this before, but when a TV episode can keep me at the edge of my seat and literally kind of make me nervous, then that's good TV. So I'll have a lot more to say, but in general, very, very, very happy with it.
Russell, I've never wanted to punch you in the face as hard as I want to punch you in the face right now.
Wow. And just to think, I was going to come to Dallas like in a couple weeks, but not now. No.
You might want to avoid my area.
You can come out to Southern California, it's nice over here.
I'll get right on that.
And Jimothy, what did you think of this episode?
Timothy. First of all, never call me Timothy again, or I'll choke you with your own larynx. Do you understand?
Fine, Jamesothy.
It's a good thing we're not all in the same room for this episode,
Yeah,
let me
no
tell
doubt.
you.
It's a little, we all spring fever. What can I say? I don't know. There are parts of this episode I liked a lot. There were a few things, reservations I had about it. I thought overall positive though. It almost felt like this should have been the episode before the finale. You know what I mean? It didn't,
Amen, brother.
It seemed like there should have been like one more episode as the finale. But
Amen, brother.
But I was overall positive on it. So I guess you can smack me in the face too, Brad.
No, sir.
I'm kind of with, I guess, Jim and Aaron the most in that I had a few minor issues with the episode, but in general, I really enjoyed it. As a season finale, I think we have some stuff to discuss about that, but as an episode of television, I really enjoyed this one. So let's get right into the plot, shall we, gentlemen?
Let's do it.
And lady? Okay, so this episode starts with a flashback, our final flashback of the season. And it's Rick, and he's at the prison, and this is before he's become farmer, but after the season 3 finale, and he's talking to Herschel. Guess what? Herschel's back. It's very nice to see him, ponytail, beard, and missing leg and all. And he starts talking to Rick throughout the episode, and let's pretty much talk about all the flashbacks right now, just for consistency's sake. He eventually, throughout the episode, talks Rick into laying down the gun, stop going out on the recon missions and the supply runs, and become a farmer, help your son, help the group. This way, you can, we already know where Rick goes with this, but this is the impetus of his decision to remove the sheriff's hat and put on the farming
Well,
hat.
even more so than that, Herschel impresses upon him, what do you want to teach Carl? He already knows how to shoot. He already knows how to defend himself and use guns. What do you want to pass on to him? Herschel's trying to pass something on to Rick that he could pass on to Carl that would be constructive rather than destructive. And that, with the counterpoint of what goes on in the present day, quote unquote, in this episode, is really like the whole juxtaposition that makes the episode work. I mean, for me anyway, the way they kept flashing back to this, they're striving for this peaceful goal of farming and getting the hogs and domesticating them and all this other stuff, contrasted with the true ferocity of what we see Rick doing in this episode.
Yeah, there's a lot of juxtaposition there, and I thought it was effective use of the flashbacks in that we probably had 4 or 5 of them, but if you were to add them all up, it was probably only 5-6 minutes of the show total. And like you said, it brought that juxtaposition there, and then even later on as we get into it, the juxtaposition of what Rick eventually has to do to those pigs with the blood over his face to what he does to Joe in the episode with the blood over his face was a nice visual
And
mirror.
I'm so happy to see Scott Wilson again. I'm sorry. I'm a bastard fan of his. So.
I agree with you, Jim, especially since the last time we saw Herschel was when he was being decapitated by the government. It's nice to, if we're not going to get a chance to see Herschel again on the show, then it's nice to see him in this kind of warm presence that he brought to it for his final appearance, as opposed to this horrible thing that happened to him.
It really just made me wish that Herschel didn't have to die after all, because Scott Wilson's just so awesome in that role. I mean, he's a good actor in general, but he just brings, I don't know, just a whole other level to that role of Herschel, and just the calm and the wisdom and everything else. And, like you guys were saying, just the juxtaposition with these scenes, for me, added a lot to the episode, because I think it was important to show this balance. I mean, I know some people were thinking it was kind of a step backward and it was kind of pointless to see flashbacks, but I think it made the brutality of what Rick had to do later and just his mood and his mindset at the end of the episode, it just accentuated it that much more by seeing, these scenes of them trying to be at peace and to do the right thing and just to kind of change gears.
Since we're talking about the flashbacks now, I might as well get to the point of what I had to say about that. I agree with everything you guys are saying about the juxtaposition and what it means to have that balance with what's going on with Rick in this episode. And there's no other way to really, I guess, handle that. So it's why I can't really mark the show down for the fact that it has flashbacks. It's just me seeing them just repeats information to me that I already know. Having this episode where we have Rick biting Joe in the neck and doing things that reflect on who he is as a person now and what he needs to do. It's hard to think of a better way to go about that because it's honestly just not my responsibility to do so. So it's great to see they chose something and it fits into this episode as a standalone episode. Going with the entire season, it does feel like I'm just being fed the same kind of thing again, which had resolved in the first couple episodes. But so it's really kind of tricky to balance. It's tricky to kind of rate how effective these flashbacks were. I don't think they were necessarily all that effective what they're trying to do from a kind of Rick character arc standpoint. But in terms of just this episode, I did like what they added a lot.
Well, here's a question for you, Aaron, because I both agree and disagree with you. I think they did bring a new bit of information that at least I don't remember them revealing earlier, but I don't think it was necessarily a good piece of information, and that is Rick's whole farmer transformation. And if you could argue a lot of the bad things that happened because he wasn't ready to stand up for himself are Herschel's fault now, because Herschel talked him into it and kind of, I don't want to say forced him into it, but really guilted him into doing these things that could be the reason why a lot of the bad things at the prison happened.
All right, my turn. I couldn't disagree with pretty much all of you any more than I ever dreamed. The flashbacks, like one of you did say, were telling us information that we've already been given. It was telling us information that was unnecessary, that we didn't need to know. I don't need to know what changed Rick's mind to become a farmer. I kind of already figured that out. That he made an internal decision to try to make the best of the situation. I didn't need to see that Herschel basically guilted him into it. Now, again, one of you said it was wonderful to see Scott Wilson. It is. Herschel was like the Yoda on the show, and especially in this episode when he's like, your weapons, you will not need them. I was getting a strong Yoda vibe.
Yeah, me too.
But if it wasn't more than 5 or 6 minutes, it felt like 21 of the 42 minutes of screen time on this episode. It was a complete waste of time. It didn't enhance any of the brutality, in my opinion. I was flabbergasted and shocked at the scene that we haven't talked about yet, the real brutal scene with Daryl and Rick and Carl. I was amazed at what they got away with on television. I had forgotten that was lifted pretty much directly from the book, but I didn't need Yoda to make that more brutal and more shocking than it was to me. It was, again, information that we've already been told in the show many times before. This zombie apocalypse changes good people. It makes them do things they don't want to do. No matter how hard you try to have a normal life in this world, it's not going to happen. We've been told this time and time again. Was it nice to see Scott? Yes. Was it nice to see Beth? Not really. We expected to see her in a pot or on a grill or something like that. But it was ridiculous, and we watched it again a second time. It lowered my rating for the show. I gave it 3.5 on the Facebook page, but after watching it again, it made me want to punch the television. It was utterly a waste of time. Of course, this is all my opinion. It didn't enhance the show at all. It distracted and took me out of the experience. I would have been much more on the edge of my seat for the entire episode than getting a breather every few minutes. It really diminished the impact of the episode as a whole for me. I'm done.
Wow. Like I said, I kind of felt the exact opposite. I think as far as new information goes, yeah, we all knew what Rick did. I think this just gives a little more nuance to it, in that it's just that sense of duty that he had at the beginning, and just that he felt he needed to go out and he needed to do what he needed to do. And it was really Herschel that told him, it's okay, that he doesn't have to be that guy. And I guess setting up the council kind of helped with that too. But it allowed him to take a step back. And like I said, I just think the scenes in the present day, Rick reflecting back on that, is what made him just realize that either that was a bad choice or that wasn't the way to go about it. That that he has to be a brutal person. And there's a lot of talking that I saw either on Facebook or just other comments that we're kind of resetting back again, like we're hitting the reset button again. And
Rick, for sure.
Well, but the comics do that all the time. I mean, Rick goes from being in the forefront to the background to the forefront to the background. He's going to be a leader. No, he's not going to be a leader. That happens often in the comics, and I don't hear, I don't seem to hear as much negativity when it happens in the comics than it does in the show. And maybe part of that is it's 120 something issues into the comic. These TV seasons are really 2 8-episode seasons is really what we're getting, because they all pretty much kind of have an arc that they go through. So it's not like a standard 22 episode television series start to finish. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. But again, to me, I'm kind of, I guess, the anti-Brad this episode, which is good. I mean, I've said this before. I like it when we don't all have the same opinion. We don't all feel the same way, because then it just sounds like we're all just rah-rahing, not really giving our opinion. So I like it when we're all not on the same page.
I can't speak to the comic in terms of kind of how people regard it overall, just because I talk about the show, I write about the show, I read the comic, I don't like go into forums or see what other opinions are for the most part. But regardless, I mean, for the show, for being its own thing, again, for this episode, I think the flashback thing works, but I have more of an issue just with Rick's arc in the season in general, just because I feel like I've seen it a couple times already, and it's not as interesting to me as other characters on the show. And so I have more of a fundamental problem with how it's treating Rick on the series than I do with its use of him in this episode overall. But I mean, that's not here or there. I mean, as far as this episode goes, like the flashback, again, they didn't like bug me enough to really make me dislike this episode. I don't think that's the case at all. I think Andrew Lincoln does a solid job. Again, yeah, it is nice to see Scott Wilson, but
And Ferb, let's not forget Ferb.
I mean, yeah, it's like I still echo a lot of the thoughts that Jim said. I do think that for what it's trying to do in this particular episode, I think it works on a story point or on a character strengthening point. It feels repetitive to me.
Aaron, we've seen this conversation between Herschel and Rick before. Yeah. Just with different dialogue. We've seen that there was an episode sometime previous to this where Herschel was like, "We can come back from this, Rick. You came back." I distinctly remember Herschel using those words, "You came back, Rick." And this was just a rehash of that. And the first time it worked. It was a great character moment. But this was just a rehash of something we'd seen before, and I just felt cheated out of something new.
And that's fair, and I agree that the pacing of said flashbacks did impact the show for me on my initial viewing. And going back on it, like, it's easier for me to see why they were doing a certain thing, and that goes with basically strengthening what the present day portion of the show had to offer by showing us this other side of what things could have been if things work out for the best. And yeah, but it didn't happen that way. And again, it just as far as a standalone episode of this TV show goes, the flashbacks work for me. With the context of the entire season, I have more issue with it.
So that first flashback, last one we'll talk about, ends with a cut immediately to Rick leaning against a van or truck of some type. He's covered in blood. It's very silent, and he is just kind of staring into the distance. And we cut to the opening credits.
I liked them going back to Rick with virtually no sound whatsoever. You could hear some birds faintly in the background, and then when it shows the wide shot of him leaning against the truck, you can see him kind of moving his fingers. And if you listen closely, to me, what it sounded like was like maybe his fingers were sticking together because of all the dry blood that was coating his hand. There were some weird kind of noises, like some rustling, and it sounded like an adhesive or something sticky is all I'm saying. But the way they chose to utilize the audio in this portion, I thought was really effective.
It's a good cold open.
So after the opening credits, we then catch back up previous to the blood-covered moment with Rick, Carl, and Michonne as they're trekking through the woods. They're talking about how hungry they are. They go around and they check a snare trap in the woods and find a small rabbit. And Rick explains to Carl how traps work and how you can trap an animal by seeing what path it's going to take and controlling that type of thing. And as they're walking to the trap in the first place, they're discussing when we get to Terminus. They're going to ask us, who are you? What do we tell them? Like, we've been through so much, we've done so many things. How much do we tell them? How much do we not tell them? Etc. And it's a short conversation, but I thought fairly effective at getting the themes of the episode across. Mostly, not completely subtly, but subtly enough for the show that it didn't bother me.
I would have entertained that conversation to last longer rather than this really idiot guy not knowing how to run out of a half a circle of zombies or whatever.
Yes, after they find the rabbit they hear screaming off in the woods, they run off to find a bespectacled man being surrounded mostly by zombies. Carl wants to go help him, but Rick says it's too late. The guy's already dead, and we see him taken down by the walkers and killed. And this is a slight reference to the comics. There's a similar scene that happens way earlier in the run where a man who looks very similar and is taken out in the same way dies. You can see the comparison screenshots on Reddit and such.
This is, in my opinion, is the first of 3 instances in this episode in which the comic does not translate as well as we would like it to the small screen.
Please explain.
Well, like, the guy, clearly, when we saw him surrounded by a semicircle of zombies, he wasn't even completely surrounded. He literally could have run towards where Rick and Michonne and Carl were and gotten away. He literally could have just run away. But looking at that in the comic, nothing's moving. It's static. You don't see the whole environment that he's in. It's dark. So it works in a still medium. But he could have just run right away. The first time I saw it, I was watching him, I was going, why is he just standing
I don't know, it looked like he was
Why
pretty
isn't he
surrounded to me. I mean, on all sides.
The side facing camera was pretty wide open, although I would ask the question, how long has he already been running before we find him?
Yeah, but if you're fighting for your life and you see, okay, let's say he was 3/4 of the way surrounded. There was plenty of room for him to run away. And he was just standing there. And I just think sometimes things don't translate well, and I think that instance was one of them.
It's the kind of scene for me that's short enough where it's not like a hugely impactful thing, or else it's just me nitpicking everything about the show. But at the same time, dude could run away. It's not like it's day 1 zombie attacks. Like, there's zombies around the area. There's a whole area. It's time to move. Not yelling out suddenly, I need help. Where does that come from?
He was running away from Terminus.
Yeah, right.
He was brunch. So they, after the man is killed, they grab their gear and they head towards the train tracks towards Terminus. That night, Rick and Michonne are sitting around a campfire while Carl is sleeping in a nearby car that they found. They're discussing Terminus and what the plan is, what they think they're going to find there, etc. They hear a noise out in the woods, and they pause for a moment, but the noise stops. So they go back to talking, and that's when guns appear out of the darkness right by the sides of their heads. It's Joe and the Claimers, as I've seen them called throughout the internet, so I guess that's the name we're going with.
Are they pros?
Are they pros?
The proclaimers.
Oh,
Are they pros? Proclaimers?
Well, they did walk 1,000 miles approximately.
They're over and done with,
Probably,
that's for sure.
500
miles.
miles.
Well, they could walk 500 more. Anyway, so total 1,000 miles. A side note in this particular moment is we learn, or at least we're told, this could not be true, but that this scene is happening on New Year's Eve. Now, that could just be Joe having some fun with language and being kind of like, hey, it's my birthday type deal. But it seems specific enough and cold enough outside that I'm willing to buy that this is actually New Year's Eve. So are we thinking this would be 2009, 2010? 2010, 2011?
I thought he was just speaking in a metaphorical sense in which, like, hey, it's a party, we're going to kill this guy. I didn't think it was actually New Year's Eve.
The way he
He
said
said,
it,
well, the way he said it is like, I thought I was going to turn in on New Year's Eve. It seemed like, he was about to go to bed, but now it's, now it's a party because they're going to beat the hell out of these guys. And
I was going to say, the way he said it could go both ways, but I feel like Joe doesn't care about time enough to really be that specific.
He claimed the calendar.
I was going to say, nobody claimed the calendars.
Exactly.
Joe explains more or less what happened, how they tracked him, etc. And Carl is inside the car, but he's trapped by a heavy-set, balding, bearded gentleman who's very creepy looking for reasons that will become very apparent later.
Yeah.
And at that point, Daryl comes out of the darkness and says, hey, I see what's going on here. You want blood, I understand, you want revenge. Take me, man. These are good people. Leave them alone. And so Joe proceeds to have his men kick the crap out of Daryl.
Yeah, he says teach him the whole way.
Yes, which apparently the whole way is murder. I'm not sure what you're supposed to learn from that, but it's apparently effective in his group.
Again, a great scene for Daryl, which when we get to something that happens later, I think that just kind of accentuates his feelings for the group, and then later, what Rick specifically, how he feels about Daryl, as a person, as a member of the group, and everything else. But that was just a really, I think maybe there's been a little criticism of Daryl being a little soft this season. It's not a criticism I really share, but it was appropriate. I mean, I think Daryl just feels like, he has a lot of low self-esteem, let's put it that way, and I don't think he values his life as much as he values the life of, especially Carl, I think, and Michonne, and even, I think he feels like he owes Rick a lot and has a kinship towards Rick. But for him to be willing to sacrifice himself for them to let him go, I just thought that was a really, really cool gesture. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out, but again, just really kind of touching scene.
What kind of ties up with that scene that we see after all this when him and Rick are talking?
For sure.
And, Rick tells him that he's his brother, that kind of brings it all full circle.
I agree with everything that Russ just had to say.
So Carl gets hauled out of the truck, and Joe makes it very clear that they're going to put this delicately, have their way with Michonne, then have their way with Carl, and then when that's all finished, they're going to kill Rick. Rick headbutts backwards into Joe, and Joe's gun gets knocked away, but it also goes off right next to Rick's head, so it's a nice sound work of Rick being mostly deafened as the fight starts. But Joe has the upper hand, and he gets Rick in a bear hug, so to speak, and says, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do now? And Rick takes a bite right out of Joe's jugular. Michonne then kills the guy who's covering her. Daryl takes out the two guys who were covering him, and then they all kind of are surrounding the guy who's on top of Carl, and Rick takes the initiative and says he's mine, and I guess the best way to put this would be he guts the man, repeatedly with a knife, stabbing him over and over until the man is no more.
And there were probably a good half dozen more stabs there than there needed to be. You know what I mean? It just like he gutted him like a fish from his belly button all the way up, it seemed like. And then it just, they turn to Carl's face and you just hear stab, stab, stab. I'm like, okay, that's enough. No, they kept going on and on.
This was lifted almost directly out of the comic,
Yes.
Except in the comic, Michonne was not with Carl and Rick. It was Abraham.
And Daryl, of course, is not in the comic, so that was the other big difference.
Yes, Abraham had been with the group for a while, and the three of them were out on a supply run. Of course, changes have to be made for the television version of it, but it was pretty accurate. I liked it a lot. It was brutal. Gosh, it was brutal, and the brutality of it bothered me. But I really enjoy seeing scenes from the comic being translated, and for the most part, it worked really well. I thought. Again, with the comic, things are static. You kind of get a sense of claustrophobia in the comic, but on the TV version, Rick headbutts Joe. Times kind of slows down, and it seemed like either Joe or the guy holding a gun on Michonne would have recovered quickly enough to say, "Screw this. This is ridiculous. Just kill him and get it over with." And yet, our heroes get out of the situation again. I would have believed it. I did believe it to be more perilous when I read it in the comic than when I saw it on the show. I still enjoyed what I was seeing because it was pretty much well done, but it seemed a little lucky. There was a little bit of Indiana Jones going on with that scene.
I kind of agree with you, but I had that feel of, the hero in the center of 50 assailants, and they come at him one by one type of deal, where everybody just kind of pauses and watches Rick and Joe go at it. Now, to a certain extent, I can buy that these guys, Joe obviously feels he has the upper hand, and he makes that pretty much clear throughout the fight, and I can buy that his guys believe that, but the switch in momentum is very abrupt from, we're all going to die, and worse, to, oh, everybody's dead, except for us.
Right.
It felt to me like that scene went on for like 15 minutes, and I know it was probably only like 4.5 or something like that. But it just, the tension to me, and I totally forgot about the scene from the comic. I mean, I haven't even read that since the first time I went through it, so it was totally out of my head at the time, and I was just focused on what I was seeing on screen. But I started thinking about it a little more, and Joe, I don't think the people in the group, I think they just recognize Joe as the one that's kind of laid down the rules and will enforce the rules, but I don't think that there's a crazy intense loyalty to him that these guys have. I think it's kind of one of those, everybody kind of does the right thing because once there's a little bit of chaos, then they all kind of have this, because of the rules and because of the law laid down by Joe, they know as soon as somebody breaks it that the rest of them will all kind of, gather behind that and then act upon it. In this instance, the fact that I would think maybe they'd be cheering even a little bit if Rick kind of got one over on Joe, to some degree. Also, when Rick bites his neck like that and the blood is just spurting like it was, and it was so sudden, I could see where, the guy that has the gun on Michonne and the guy's beating up on Daryl would give pause for a moment because it's just something that is so abrupt and so shocking and just like, am I really seeing this even? That your brain would forget what you were doing. Like the guy covering Michonne, I could easily see if I was in that situation that I would totally forget what was going on. And Michonne, I think, and Daryl are smart enough that they were just looking for that one little gap, that one little moment where they could just move quick and act. They pounced on that and then got the upper hand. I mean, I totally agree. It is a little contrived. Maybe one of them would have pulled the trigger a little quicker than they did. But again, I think the shock value of it is what sells it for me. As a TV show, of course, to put that behind me.
I was certainly on the edge of my seat for the entire scene. I mean, it was thrilling.
Yeah.
My problems with it mostly come in retrospect and from the second viewing. But man, it was one of those. There's a couple of those moments in the last 8 episodes of Breaking Bad where we talked about on Los Podcast Hermanos where you had to remind yourself to breathe like 5 minutes after the scene was done. This was approaching that level, and not entirely surprising. We didn't mention it, but this episode was directed by Michelle MacLaren, who is well known and lauded for her action episodes of Breaking Bad, which were just phenomenal.
I was just thinking it was more like that wolf pack mentality. You know, when the alpha male goes down or is threatened, the rest of the pack just kind of doesn't know what to do.
I agree exactly.
Yeah,
Jim.
exactly.
You know,
exactly.
that's how I kind of saw it. I mean, granted, it was a little, like Brad said, Indiana Jonesy, I guess, a little disjointed, but I just kind of, that's how I took it. Like, they saw their alpha male go down, and then they had no rudder, you know.
I think it's a mix. I think it's that and a kind of a concurrent timeline thing. That we're just like, if you put this scene in like split screens, maybe we can see the exact timing of when people did what. But for the sake of a TV show that has a singular way of portraying action sequences, I didn't have any real issue with it. I was tense, and it got the desired effect out of
And
it.
in an episode with a whole colony of what might be cannibals in Terminus, this guy who wanted a little piece of Carl was definitely the creepiest thing.
Oh my god, yeah, what like that? Like the way Joe phrased it is like, all right, like I'm not really like I was fine with you before, but you really throw me off your scent now. Like my god, this is the plan for vengeance.
I think another reason that this scene worked for me a little better in the comics is two reasons. One, in the comics they had knives, so the threat wasn't as immediate.
Yeah, they were more like tweakers, kind of, weren't they, in the comics?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they didn't have guns. They had knives, and if you time it right and play it right, you can get out of a knife fight much easier than you can a gunfight. Another thing is that when you're reading a comic, the scene you're reading can happen as slow as you want it to in your head or as fast as you want it to in your head. When you're watching a TV show, you get real time and that's it. Now it could be edited to kind of reflect a slower pace or a faster pace, but in a comic, it's the way that you want to see it. It's the way your mind interprets it the best, to where it makes sense to you and why things work. And in the show, like I said, you have to deal with what you're given. So I think perhaps if it was edited a little quicker, maybe I might have not felt like they were as lucky as they were. But that's just another little observation.
No, I think I agree. So afterwards, we see Rick sitting against the truck, just like we saw at the end of the cold open, and he is just covered in blood. He looks like he used Just for Men, Beard Dye, the blood edition on him. It is just caked with blood. And Daryl comes over and talks to him, tells him what happened after he left the prison, how he was with Beth, but then now she's gone, which is pretty much all he says about that. And he says, you did what you had to do, anybody would have done the same thing. And Rick says he doesn't know if that's necessarily true, but by the end of the scene, like Jim said, he calls Daryl his brother. And it doesn't matter that Daryl was with those guys for a while, because Daryl came back and Daryl was never evil. He was just doing what he had to do to survive.
I have a bit of a confession to make here. This was my favorite bit of dialogue in the whole movie, the whole episode. And you know that thing that especially girls do, and I'm talking to Ashley at the same time, because I've heard her do it, I've witnessed it, where something sweet or whatever will happen, and they'll go, oh, like, oh, that touches me, deep down emotionally. Oh, that's so sweet. I've heard you do it. No, I heard you do it just a couple days ago, sweetie. It's okay though. It's fine. But no, listen. I actually did that out loud. The first time I was watching it, late Sunday night when I got home from work, I actually caught myself saying out loud when he says, "You're my brother," I went, "Oh." And I went, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that out loud. But that's the honest truth. I'm not just saying it to be funny. It actually happened. That's how much I really liked that little bit of connection that they had.
We did it with a little more humor intended on it, because it's myself, one of my guy friends, and one of my girlfriends. We watched the show together, and we all just went, "Oh!" at the same time. So it's like, oh, that's really nice. That's a cool moment.
I think it's an important moment for the show itself
It
because
is, yeah.
Rick doesn't really have. I think he treated Herschel as kind of a father figure. Him and
Shane?
Him and Shane had too much tension going on. I don't feel like anybody else he really kind of Glenn. I don't see Rick seeing as maybe like a brother, not a son figure either, but just maybe not that closeness to it.
Cousin.
So yeah.
He called Shane a brother on the show a few times. He used the term before, but I know what you're
Right.
going for. Yeah.
Right, but this is somebody at this point, four seasons in, where they've been through so much, and Rick, I think he needed that. I think he needs somebody that he can rely on like a brother. Somebody that he doesn't have to feel like he's either teaching something to, or learning something from, or setting an example, or whatever. It's somebody that he can just that'll understand where he's coming from. He can understand where Daryl's coming from, and they can just kind of have this bond that I don't think he's capable of having with anybody else in the group. Now, we see that Eugene's come in, and maybe that'll evolve. Maybe even Tyrese, things might evolve a little bit. But at this moment in time, I think it's important for Rick to have that relationship with somebody else in the group.
It's nice that he's acknowledging it. That's another thing too. Like
Yes.
it's more if he's so closed off just because he's dealing with Rick stuff all the time. It's nice that he's in a moment where he's obviously in a state based on things that happened, and Daryl's vulnerable just because of what he's kind of admitting about what happened in the scenario and whatnot. So they do share this bond, and they share this moment where they're able to acknowledge the kind of relationship they have and the fact that they've been through a lot in the course of 2 years or however long they've been together.
Well, not just Rick stuff, but also Rick things.
Fangs, Jim. How many times do I have to say this?
Sorry.
There were two things about the Daryl thing that Daryl's kind of monologue that kind of one was like bothersome, and the other was kind of neat because he acknowledges that the code that Joe had was really stupid. It was nice to hear someone say out loud how stupid the claim thing is on the show, not just us from a distance. But then he goes to the Beth thing and he just says she's gone. It's like I feel like we could have spent a little more time being a little more specific besides just gone.
If I was Rick, I probably would have said, what do you mean gone?
Gone, right, yeah.
Did she leave? Did somebody take her? I would have inquired a little bit. But then again, I would have just butchered the man in half, so maybe I wasn't that concerned with it. Oh, there was something else that Daryl said that some of his dialogue that kind of bothered me. He was saying, what you did last night, anybody would have done. And then Rick says, no, not that. Nobody, not anybody would have done that. And then Daryl turns around and says, yeah, that wasn't you. That's not normal for you. But then again, 5 seconds earlier, he would have said anybody would have done that.
Well, but anyone would have done that in that situation. It doesn't make them a monster. It's, I think, the more the message of that than anything else. You do what you have to do to survive, but it doesn't mean you are an evil person because you did that. You're human. You're a father in this case. Not that I think Daryl would quite have that the nuance to completely put that together, but I think that was what his intent was.
It links in more of how the structure of the show reflects the kind of the flashbacks in the present day, and Daryl is adding on to it. It's more screenplay of this episode than it is how literal I can take Daryl's statements, how conscious he is of what he's saying to Rick, and how that applies to the general theme of this episode.
And we should mention before we move on that inside the vehicle are Michonne and Carl, and they're both listening in on the conversation, which will come up later. So later on, they are continuing on towards Terminus, and they find it, and they decide we're not going to go straight in, we're not going to the front door, we're going to do some recon for a day or so. Rick buries a bag with pretty much all their extra weapons and supplies, their stuff and things. And they do the recon, and this is where we come back to that scene of Carl and Michonne listening in. Carl and Michonne make one team, and Rick and Daryl make another, and Carl and Michonne are talking about what happened the previous night, and how, and Michonne is kind of going into the same thing. Your dad was doing this to protect you, he's not a monster, he's come to terms with who he is, and Carl says that he's not really worried so much about that as he's worried about what he himself is capable of. He's worried that Herschel was right in some respects, and that he himself is a monster, which, as they pointed out on Talking Dead later, the sheer fact that he can recognize this probably means he's just fine.
I agree, and I also think this is one of the better scripted portions of this episode.
Oh, we also get the final answer of what happened to Michonne's son, Andre. Turns out her boyfriend and their friend got high at the place they were at, and they weren't able to protect themselves against zombies, and so she turned them into her walkers.
that's a nice bit of we're getting told something that we've maybe determined on our own. We're not all that specific, but like had a general idea of what was going on. But I think Denai Guerrera's performance really sells what she's trying to get out on for her character, as well as kind of in part to Carl and how their relationship is played out over the course of this. Like, it all just worked for me. Like, I really enjoyed it.
That monologue was great. I just really appreciated that, and the whole explanation of how at first she did it in kind of revenge, to keep them around to remind her, and then they end up being like her protectors and camouflage and stuff. She really sold that whole monologue to me. I just thought that was great.
And it was nice to know what they had done, because it had been alluded that they had done something, but it was never really clear. And I thought, as explanations go, this one was pretty decent. It wasn't too crazy, and it wasn't too minor to warrant it. It was a realistic and understandable thing for them to do, and for her to get upset about.
I wouldn't say it raises my opinions on her from season 3 in terms of how they're writing her character, but it almost retroactively makes her better, explaining that she was, because of these things and because of the way she was just blending in with the rest of the walkers using these two people, like she was closed off, and that's why she was so standoffish and non-talking and things like that.
Yeah, it makes it seem like there was a point to it, and that it just wasn't either bad writing or that they didn't know what to do with her character or something like that. But I'm just so thankful that they're giving her so much. They're expanding her character like we've all been wanting them to do. That we know that Denai Guerrera is a better actress than that. We've seen her in interviews. We've seen her speak before, and just the fact that they're letting some personality come through, that they're letting some emotion come through, and that it's just not she's not the figure in the corner that scowls and swings a sword all the time. That we're getting some real character development and some real character moments out of her. And I think that's going to add a lot to the show. And I think that again, fans of the comic, I think it's good for them to finally start seeing that.
Well, and this season in general, I think we've touched on it a few times previously, but I really feel as now that we've seen the whole season, was, and I say this lovingly, a lot of damage control. And I think for the most part, well done damage control. Either here's things from previous seasons that people didn't like, how Michonne acted, how Carl was petulant, etc. and so forth, and either we're going to retroactively explain why that was, Michonne in this case, or we're going to put it to bed once and for all with Carl in the pudding episode. And I think for the most part those things worked, but it seemed to be them very cognizant of those problems and trying to fix them. And for the most part, like I said, I think it was successful.
See, that's something I agree with you on, Jordan, in terms of what they're trying to do. It does feel like we're 4 seasons in, and yet most of these characters are ill-defined, and that's what the season was trying to work towards, was trying to make it better overall for the future. So I can only hope that the future proves more successful because of the work that we've done in this season, which was ambitious and was creative in terms of making the show stand out as something different than just a repeat of the seasons we already started seeing 4 years in. But at the same time, I still found issues occasionally, but that didn't hold me back from recognizing the work being done to say, hey, there are characters on the show, we should try to explore them for a bit.
So after they've had these conversations, they've buried the weapons and extra gear in the woods, etc. They hop the fence and they go in the back door of Terminus, and they find themselves in a big, I guess warehouse would be the best way to put it, where they have not necessarily printing presses, but assembly lines for putting up the Terminus signs, the maps, etc. There's an old woman reading a script into the microphone, the same thing we heard over the radio 10, 12 episodes ago now. Those who arrive survive, that whole thing, and everyone quickly notices them, and we're introduced to Gareth. So Gareth is, well, he's the rest of the group. He's the baby-faced one. He's very sinister. He is, and we know from some news, let's jump the gun on now, he's going to be a season regular next season, so expect to see a lot more of him. But he comes across like a nice guy, except for the fact that you're watching The Walking Dead, so it can't be the entire story. And he welcomes them to Terminus. He explains it's not how they normally do things, like bring people in through the front, the welcome wagon, all of that. He asks them to drop their weapons, and they do. They are inspected and patted down, and then the weapons are handed back to them, where they are brought out front to meet Tasha Yar and are offered some barbecue.
Barbecue.
When Gareth first interacts with them, after saying like this is how we normally do it, the words he says are almost exactly the same as what Mary said to the guy to Glenn Company last week. So I noticed that kind of.
So they got a group script then.
Yeah, it seems that way.
They're very polished at this. They've done it many times before.
A little cultish.
By the way, just in case people up north are wondering, we do in fact down south use the term "fix you a plate" or "fix a plate," meaning get them something to eat.
I think we use that term up north too.
I've heard this expression. Yes.
Okay, I just saw some talk on the Facebook page about wondering what that meant. Like somebody said, were their plates broken?
Probably Canadians.
They're fixing to fix them a plate, Brad.
Right, with all the fixins.
With all the fixins.
So they are, like we said, offered the food, and then Rick goes full Sherlock, and he starts to notice things around that aren't right. We'd already had, I thought this was actually pretty well and subtly done in the flashbacks, mentioned Herschel's watch that he had given to Glenn, and he doesn't know what time it is anymore. And Rick sees the chain of the pocket watch in someone's pants, he sees another person wearing riot gear, he sees another person wearing Daryl's old poncho, and the fourth thing?
There's the backpack from the episode. They found the episode in the episode clear. There's the backpack from it's like a very orange backpack.
Oh, I didn't even realize that was the one that was. Okay.
They showed him kind of, because they showed that first, because that's the most hard thing to spot. It was the weirdest thing to spot to pick out of things to be suspicious of. Then they show the riot gear and the poncho, and then the watch thing comes up.
Wasn't Bob carrying that backpack for a while? I don't know why I associated that backpack with Bob.
Maybe.
He had that backpack in that one episode where he tried to get all the booze and they couldn't get away, I remember.
It wasn't a big orange backpack, but
I don't know, but obviously one of our people, had that because they pointed it out to us by showing it to us, and for some reason I was thinking it was Bob.
I love that scene. Just they did a really good job on the editing side. I think the music they started building a little tension with the music, and just Rick, you could tell the wheels are completely turning. He hasn't let his guard down a bit, kind of like in Nebraska, where he just knows something's off. But the way they edited that episode and the way it was cut, I just thought it was fantastic because again, we're getting Rick the cop, right? Rick the looking for evidence basically, and when he sees the the pocket with the chain and the riot gear and stuff like that, he knows okay, something's up here. They're not being honest, and then he gives them the opportunity to tell the truth, and they don't, and he knows they don't. Then it all hits the fan. But I just thought that sequence was just very, very well directed, well edited, and well scored.
Well, I well agree with you. Yeah, I think Bear McCreary's work in this episode in general, I think, is actually pretty phenomenal as far as the series goes.
Oh yeah.
One thing about the watch, because I wrote this down in my notes, I liked Herschel's line because he talked about not having his watch anymore. He says it's always right now to me. It just seems like a very Herschel line to say.
Yeah.
So Rick grabs one of the what has been called pretty much everywhere online now the termites, the people from Terminus.
I love that nickname. I think that's perfect.
Okay, it works really well. The guy he grabs is named Alex. Alex is one of the guys who had done the pat down earlier on in the episode. Puts the gun to his head and starts interrogating basically where to get the watch, where does the riot gear come from, etc. There's a sniper on the roof. Hey, remember I mentioned that last week? They probably had snipers. Turned out I was right. Anyway, so he says, how good is that sniper shot? Do you really think he's going to be able to save you? You need to answer my questions right now. At which point Gareth comes out and starts to give fairly plausible explanations for where all this stuff came from.
Riot gear and poncho.
From his perspective, it's plausible.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Because he has another connected. I can agree
He
with
kind of came across as a little bit of a douchebag while he was doing so, though.
Well, I mean, if
Like,
you're holding
yeah.
a guy hostage,
Yeah.
you gotta know how much patience.
And when it says how good are the snipers, we find out very soon. Not very good. I think they were trained by Imperial stormtroopers.
I think those snipers were doing exactly what they're
No,
supposed to
yeah,
be
yeah,
doing.
exactly.
I think
Yeah.
that was planned completely.
Also, fastest sniper rifle ever, but that's a thing for later. So eventually, Rick loses patience. He shoots Alex in the head, which I did not catch the first time, actually.
No. Mary shoots Alex in the head.
Are you sure about that?
I'm mostly sure. I've watched it a few times, and every time I just think it's a badly shot scene.
Because in the In Memoriam, it was in the In Memoriam on Talking Dead where I really noticed because they play it in slow motion. But I'm pretty sure it was Rick's gun and the bullet spray going away from Rick instead of towards him. Or not bullet spray, blood spray.
From what I can see, it just looked like Mary took a shot, missed, hit Alex, and maybe Rick's gun went off or something. But like then he just kind of dropped him, and they all started running. But
Yeah, well, like you said,
was
whatever
chaos,
happens,
that's
Alex
for
is dead. Alex is gone. So you don't have to
I love
worry.
that we're analyzing this like the Zapruder film. It was awesome.
it was a chaotic scene. And it's
Back and to the left.
Back to the
left.
the fit hit the Shan, that's for sure.
So, like Aaron said, Alex is dead. Everybody goes running, and the snipers and people with AK-47s on the roof, etc., are just firing at them, but not hitting them, not even coming close. But they're certainly funneling them in a certain direction, and they make their way through a number of buildings. They make their way past a cage that has what appears to be a human skeleton, pretty much completely stripped clean, surrounded by giblets and offal and stuff like that.
A bunch of skeletons.
Yeah, there's only one I can see for clearly, but yeah, there's
Pile of
probably
bones.
one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you just said it because I was looking at something Ashley brought up on her phone, and I'll go back to that in a second. But did you make mention that Rick deliberately looked at that? He noticed that big pile of bones as they were running by.
I did not notice Rick's
Yeah.
reaction. No.
Yes, he noticed it, and the camera did have a good enough
Yeah.
shot to show there's bones here.
Yeah, he definitely was looking, and as he was running by, he definitely saw all of that. The thing that Ashley just distracted me with was she looked up. What did you search for, Ashley, just now?
Mary shoots Alex Walking Dead.
Yeah, and several returns came up and saying something that Mary accidentally took out Alex.
She's aiming for Rick and shoots Alex in the face.
Okay, very possible.
Yeah, more than one return said that.
So they make their way past that cage with the skeletons, like we already said. They make their way into a room that is filled with candles, and graffiti's not the right word, but painted words on the wall, trust no one, we come first. It was a lot of strange halted phrases, and then the names of people in a circle on the, written on the floor with numbers next to each name. Yeah, it was kind of spiraling out, but the numbers did not match the spiral, which I thought was interesting. If it wasn't for the fact that we think we know where this is going with these people, I would almost say it looked like people who had been on a sports team and their sports number next to it.
Maybe it was ages. Yeah.
Oh, could be. Although I don't
didn't
think I
notice
saw any
numbers.
repeated numbers. Yeah, it was
noticed
hard to see some of them, Brad. I paused it and like zoomed in and was looking at it really close. Only a couple of the numbers were easily visible. Most of them were kind of in shadow.
Maybe that was Jacob's list of candidates for the island.
4, 8, 15, 16, 20, 42, 108.
This whole funneling section, everything they're running through, it reminded me of the Walking Dead run. The
I thought the
House of
same
Horses
thing.
So I was like, I feel like I did this before. There's less guns, but yeah.
I was like, is this a commercial?
I kind of want to re-edit that scene, strip out all the audio, and put in the Benny Hill music.
Danny Savage.
Or Highway to the Danger
This
Zone.
was, I guess, if there's a ding I would give this episode, it's this, and not the fact that they, the guards were missing, because it was clear that they're funneling them. It's just that they weren't smart enough to figure that out.
I thought the same
Rick,
thing.
Well-
Rick is smart enough to kind of see all the evidence and put two and two together and realize that
I
there's
think
something odd going on.
I think they did, Russ.
What choice did they have?
Yeah, that exactly.
I
Like, what's the other
think there
option?
were a few places they could have found cover.
Well,
Um,
they were still after him. There were still people on the ground chasing him. And
Right.
And when they went in that candle room, Michonne's like, I don't think they're trying to kill us. And Rick says, yeah, they're shooting at our feet. They figured it out. They know they weren't trying to kill him, but they still had to move. They were trapped in that room. They didn't get out of that room. Like Ashley said, they had no choice. They had to move.
I guess so.
I mean, for liking this episode the most of all of us. I mean, I feel like this scene's just so effective for me. I don't know. It's,
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, it totally works. I mean, like I said, it's just kind of like a tick that I had in kind of the back of my brain. It didn't make me go, oh, forget it, I'm out, kind of thing. It's just something that just kind of stuck.
it's the kind of thing that comes with like we're watching it from the outside. Like I don't know what I do in that
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
And I can only assume Jim was being silly, making a joke earlier when he said something about they were lousy shots. But there was one of our listeners on the Facebook page said as much. I can't believe how bad those snipers were. And I was like, hey, they weren't trying to kill them, they were hurting them. And she came back and was like, oh yeah, of course, that makes complete sense. So
There's also somewhere in this funneling trap sequence a deleted scene that screenshots have emerged of online of them going through a room where there are zombies chained up kind of Michonne style with like shackles around their neck and then a long chain chained to the floor. I don't know exactly where that fits in or why it was cut, but it was an interesting shot.
it sounds like a great like Halloween maze that we got to watch.
Yeah, it's like the zombie run, the Walking Dead zombie runs.
Now, is it right after the scene? I can't remember if it was right before or right after, and I haven't watched it twice, but I guess it's right before the candle room, right after. Don't they, when they run past, we don't see anybody, but don't you hear voices saying, help us, help
Yeah, we
us?
do.
Yes,
So
I caught
they
that
pass
second
by-
time through.
They pass by the containers and there's a lot of voices being heard in that area.
Right.
Yeah. So I know there was some speculation maybe that's where Beth is, that, she's stuck in one of
We
those.
can get to that, but I don't think that's the case.
I'm with Aaron.
I think we saw Beth in the flashbacks and in the present day, and that she was on the grill.
Didn't somebody point out also that Denise Crosby's character was wearing Beth's sweater? Or did
That got debunked pretty quickly.
Okay.
It was somewhat similar.
Because I mean, everybody else is wearing everyone else's belongings. I thought maybe that might have been a visual cue.
I mean, if we want to get to predictions, I feel like we can save that for later. But
Yeah, I agree.
my own thoughts on
Yeah, no, I
everything.
agree.
So they eventually make their way to the end of the maze and back to the rear section of the compound where they had originally come in, and they get to the fence and they see that there are a lot more termites than they thought, or at least they have moved where they were, and there are people waiting on the other side of the fence for them, so they are trapped. Gareth is up on the roof and he gives them very clear instructions. He refers to them as the ringleader, the archer, and the samurai, and he forces them to lay down all their weapons and then go single file one at a time over to a train car marked A, where we get our episode title. And Rick goes in first, then Daryl, then Michonne, then Carl. And when they finally get in and the door is shut, out from the shadows emerge Glenn and the rest of our survivors, minus Tyrese, Carol, and Beth. Those three are
Judith.
absent. And Judith, yes, thank you.
The most important character of them all.
And they exchange some pleasantries and just introduce the characters that Rick and crew have not met yet. And then we end the episode with Rick looking at everyone and saying they're going to feel really stupid when they find out. Someone, I forget who, asks, what are they going to find out? I think it might have been Abraham. And he goes, in a really awfully boulderized final line, they don't know who they're screwing with.
I have a few comments about this section.
And that's the end of the episode and the season. So, Brad, what are your comments about this section?
I liked the way, like, when Rick saw these strange new people. First off, let me say, what's the girl's name that was that liked girls that helped? Was
Tara.
helping Glenn?
Tara.
Tara. Did Rick know who Tara was?
No.
No.
Rick,
No.
okay, so Rick.
There's that one scene where she goes, "These are our friends." I think Maggie
Yeah.
says it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And then Daryl's like, all right, they're friends of ours then. I thought that was a little.
Wait, back up, because there is that scene when the mid-season finale where Rick is talking with the governor, and he does look at Tara at one point, like, is this what you want? Like when he's trying to like dissuade the group from shooting at the prison. So there might be an acknowledgement that Rick made.
I think you're right, Aaron. I think you're right because in that I do remember that scene, but in this scene, in this final, when he looks at her, there was almost a bit of a sense of recognition, and then she
She looks down.
like she was ashamed. Like
Yes.
he knows that I was on the opposite side, and now here I am.
It's kind of the thing
So-
I'm not going to worry about at this point, given the
Right.
situation. But yeah. That's I literally just remember that. Yeah, because he specifically looked at her. 'Cause she was like the youngest person in the group holding guns at the prison, and he's like, "Is this what you want?" Like you
Right.
said that right at her.
And then I hope we get a little more of Rick being maybe some time will pass by the, between seasons, but. And I guess they're kind of in a pickle right now. They don't have the luxury.
No, that was a train car.
Okay. They don't have the luxury for Rick to ask him his 3 questions. These new people.
Yeah.
So and Daryl was like, okay, they're friends of ours, and so I guess I can kind of look past that. But I really like the transformation Daryl has made.
I gotta say, I would not be surprised if Rick does recognize her at some point, but if they were trying to communicate that he recognized her there in that low of light, I would be dubious of that. I mean, I get what you're saying. I understand how it would technically work, but it's so dark.
to me, yeah, but your eyes adjust.
Not that fast, though.
Yeah, they do.
This is getting into.
Oh, I
This is
agree.
the nitty-picky.
There's a camera shot on Tara that recognizes that this is a thing to make a point of. I think.
Yeah, I agree. My last comment about this section deals with the last line of dialogue.
I think
This
it
is
Yeah.
the third example in this episode of what I think a scene from the comic is not translating well to the TV show. That line, that whole bit of dialogue, they're going to feel pretty stupid. What are they going to feel stupid about?
They're screwing with the wrong
people.
people.
In the comic, obviously, they used a harsher word, which they cannot use on even basic cable. So
They did shoot.
Huh?
They did shoot that.
did they? Okay.
I was
Yes.
ask you if they did.
I'm not surprised they shot it.
If you watch The Talking Dead, they did that line 3 times, and one of them dropped the F-bomb.
Okay. Well, in the comic, he drops the F-bomb, and it works in the comic because that's, again, that's the comic. But it seemed like they just wanted to shoehorn that line in because it was so awesome in the comic. It seemed like they wanted to shoehorn it in to this scene. And I really honestly don't think that Rick would have felt that way right at this moment, especially with meeting these, adding these 4 new strangers to the group or whatever. I don't think he would have been just ready to fight back that soon and been that confident about
I
the
disagree.
situation.
I think this episode builds him up to be in that state where he's ready to take on whatever threat comes their way, whether it's going to threaten their group, threaten his boy. I think all that's reflected in what this episode's trying to accomplish for Rick the character.
I can agree with that. I really can, but I don't think he would have said what he said. He might have said something else with as much conviction and as much.
I completely agree with that because I think this line's terrible.
Maybe that's what I'm trying to get across is that it sounded silly.
The issue I take with it is, Breaking Bad's done this. Jordan, there's an episode, IFT.
Oh, there's
has
several
a-
episodes.
Yeah, where they use the F word, and I mean,
They
this
dropped
is
sound
showing-
for broadcast, but
yes,
yes.
exactly, but it's still there, and they still feel the impact of it. And if we're going to show a scene where Rick guts a guy on TV, I don't think there's much of an issue with not hearing one word but still hearing the power of that phrase, regardless of it's a naughty word. Like I just don't get it.
You've got it's all about the FCC and their rules.
Well, no, the FCC has absolutely no bearing whatsoever. It's cable. The FCC has no hold over content restrictions. Period.
Okay.
Really. It's all advertisers. That's what it is. Breaking Bad, and this is me supposing this particular part. Breaking Bad had a much smaller audience until the very end, so they could come to deals with advertisers. What content can we show? What content can we not show? Walking Dead is way bigger. They've got way bigger advertisers, way more advertisers, and they don't want to tick them off because it's a lot of money. So I would not be surprised if the DVD version or Blu-ray version has the regular normal line, but it was certainly jarring. I would prefer even the drop sound version like you would see on.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Breaking
I'm
Bad.
surprised I didn't see a drop sound version.
I think the drop sound just is ridiculous.
I agree,
don't
but it's
know.
better than Screwed. It's like when adults say poopy or something like that. It just makes me want to punch them.
Well, why can't
I
they do
disagree.
what they have started to do on sitcoms now because it's funny? You get a bleep and you get a mosaic face or a mosaic
Well,
mouth.
because it's not a sitcom.
Like on the Goldbergs the other night, which is a great sitcom by the way. It's all about the 80s. Some shenanigans are going on, and the grandfather says, "What the?" and then it bleeps and it mosaics his mouth. I almost would prefer that than something as silly
It's gonna
as.
shoot the whole mood.
In the Benny Hill version of the scene, yes, they were amazing. Yeah. But I mean, there's nothing else I can do about this besides complain. But I think it's a terrible line. And again,
me ask you this.
in the same show where we're getting a guy getting gutted and a near raping of a child, I don't really see the problem with dropping a word in the
Let me
sound.
ask you this: Would it have been better for you, Aaron, if he had said they're messing with the wrong people?
I think so because it doesn't feel like you're censoring a word for the sake of another
Okay.
It
word.
would also work better for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I totally agree.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Whether you guys would have preferred a bleeped out or dropped F-bomb or a just another choice of word.
Or just they don't realize who we are because was the whole point of the episode earlier. The whole theme of this particular 42 minutes of television.
Yeah.
Wait till
I
we
fully
get
expect on the Blu-ray we're gonna get the full Monty as it were on the Blu-ray. I think
Full
I think
Blu-ray.
this was just I think this was just an
I do
appeasement
not want to
for
see that Python of
for
his.
TV. Yeah.
No, I can do it.
I hope so, Russ. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, god dang, like it's just these words are using in place of other words. It's like, oh my god, like this. It's not like it was. It's not like it was lost to them at the time. I don't understand. I don't know how you look at that final edit and think, yeah, good one. Let's go with that take.
It's zeros on a check from advertisers. That's how you think of it. Is it a dumb decision? Yes, but I do understand why they made it. Unfortunately.
I would not expect Carl to die in this episode, but at the same time, that whole scene is so tense that I would not be surprised if the sniper ended up taking out Carl as they were marching to the train.
I
That
thought
was
the
that
same
tense.
thing.
It looked like it was so close to that being the way that situation would play out. Which again is credit to Bear McCreary's score. I think it's tremendous in this, and the way it raises the tension and lowers it in all what it's doing in this whole sequence of just guns trained on you and you don't know what's gonna happen next.
Now, do you think that's why they had the whole hubbub with him not being on the Talking Dead? They were afraid they would tip their hand as to their them.
That's pretty much what they said on this week's Talking Dead. Was they announced that he'll be on next season, and they couldn't say it until the episode had aired for that exact reason.
Who are you guys talking about?
Chandler Riggs.
Oh, okay.
He's gonna be on this week. This week was the first time that Andrew Lincoln's ever been on the show. He was fantastic, by the way. And they announced that Chandler will be on next season.
Okay. I was certain that we were going to get a major character death.
I wasn't.
I was, and I guess I'll reserve the rest of that comment until we get to our ratings.
Well, speaking of those ratings, Brad, before we get to them, Russ, who's our sponsor this week?
Our sponsor for this episode of the Walking Dead TV podcast is Discount Comic Book Service. That's DCBService.com. As you listen to this, it is in the first few days of April. The new solicits haven't quite come out yet on the website, but they do take late orders. Don't be afraid. If you want to get your order in to send it in late, they'll gladly accept that. You can save tons of money on your comics at Discount Comic Book Service, anywhere from 25 to 35, 50, and sometimes with new number ones, even 75% off of individual issues. All new Marvel and DC hardcovers and trade paperbacks are always 50% off at Discount Comic Book Service, and you can get a ton of Walking Dead related merchandise, whether it be they always have T-shirts or mugs or just tons of cool cool Walking Dead related stuff, as well as the regular monthly edition of the comics. So please check them out, discountcomicbookservice.com. Also, you can link your Comixology account to Discount Comic Book Service and earn 5% back towards your future purchases. So if you've been saving up for that really cool hardcover or cool piece of memorabilia that might be a little pricey and you like the digital side of things, order up on your digital, link it up to Discount Comic Book Services Comixology portal, and use that to save even more money when you're ready to buy that special something that you've been waiting to buy. And then also check out their sister site, InStockTrades.com. So once again, Discount Comic Book Service, we appreciate their support of the Walking Dead TV podcast.
And hey, you're going to have a lot of time in the next few months. Perfect opportunity to catch up on The Walking Dead and lots of other great comics that are out there.
Wait, it's over?
Well, till October.
Oh, okay.
So let's go in alphabetical order. So that will be Aaron, Ashley, Brad, Jim, Russ. What are your busters this episode?
I go for a strict policy of ladies first. So I'd say Ashley should get the first rating.
Fair enough. Ashley, on a scale of 1 to 5 busters, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, how would you rate this episode?
Wait, what's the Buster again? Explain this to me.
Buster was the name of what I named the zombie that was sitting on the bus in the pilot episode as Rick was riding through downtown on his horse.
I forgot that's why it was Buster.
Yeah, because he was on the bus, and so I said, I think we should
that
call
connection at all.
Yeah, that's exactly where that came from.
I always thought it was because he looked like Buster Poindexter.
Yeah, no, he was on the bus, and I said, I think we should refer to this zombie as Buster, and that's where that came from, because he was on the bus.
So now that you have the etymology, Ashley, how many busters would you give the episode?
Like 3 1/3 Busters, not 3 1/2.
Not 3.5.
No.
What is it that dropped it down that much for you? Let me ask you this really quick. In the 4 years you've been watching it, have you seen any 5 Buster episodes, or something that was extremely close to a 5 Buster episode?
Normally when I watch the show, I can literally feel my anxiety skyrocketing, and I didn't in this episode at all.
Okay.
I was not on the edge of my seat.
Okay. Wow. So 3 and a
3 and ahead of a Buster.
3.3 ambience out of 5. Ambience is anxiety, right?
Ambience helps you sleep.
No, it's
Oh, well, for me that would be the same thing. Anyway,
Aaron.
Yeah, I would go solid 4 Busters. I think issues I have with Rick's arc aside, I still think the acting from everybody in this episode is tremendous. I think the tension was there for me. I think everything involving the kind of climax with Joe and then the climax of this episode in general, I think it all worked out. And even with the clunker of line at the end of the episode, I'm still excited to see where things go from here, just because we're kind of reset now. We're kind of clear on where we need to go in terms of, hey, characters are established, now let's get them out of this tournament situation. So 4 Busters.
Mine involves a mathematical equation of sorts. Present day storyline minus flashbacks minus overall disappointment regarding my expectations brings me to 2.5 Busters. On the Facebook, I said 3.5 Busters, but after watching it a second time, I have to give it 2.5. The present day would have gotten a 5, except we didn't get confirmation about what Terminus is. We only got hints. I think we're all pretty smart. We can figure it out. But I expect a season finale to knock me on my butt. I expect a season finale to make me go, oh my gosh, I gotta wait 6 months. This is not happening in this instance. We think we know it might be cannibals because we saw a pile of bones, but we don't know. I expected to be hit in the face with a revelation. I honestly expected Maggie Green to die. That would have shocked me. I would have hated it, and that's what the show does best. It shocks me, and it makes me hate the fact that I lost somebody I liked. I didn't get that either. So 5 minus a whole Buster for the disappointment is 4. Minus the flashbacks of a 1, and my crooked math gives me 2.5 Busters on the end.
Thanks, Professor.
Jeez, we're gonna put a PowerPoint presentation on the website so people can
There will
follow
be-
that.
That explanation was longer than the flashbacks.
There will be a pop quiz following the blooper section of the episode.
Solve for X. I give this 4 out of 5 Busters. I had to deduct something for that last line that we were just talking about because it really lost its impact when they PG-fied it, as it were. It almost reminded me of when The Sopranos were on A&E. Friggin' and you pasta maker, that kind of stuff.
Pasta maker.
It was just terrible. It's terrible to remind me of. It kind of took the bite out of what should have been a really badass line. It also seemed to me like this would have been better served as the episode before the episode or the season ender. I mean, this is the end of the 4th season, and there was more going on in the half season break ender than there is in this finale for the whole season. I agree with something that Brad said too. I mean, they really didn't show us how what kind of thing is going on in Terminus, so we really don't have any reason to hate them at first until he sees the stolen possessions. And I don't know, just it seemed like there was just not enough of an impact for a season finale. So I give it a 4 out of 5. It's a solid episode, but room for improvement.
I give it a solid 5 out of 5. To me, the tension was unbelievable. The juxtaposition with the flashbacks to the present day, I thought, really added to Rick's characterization. The one thing I'll say also that had me biting my fingernails, sitting at the edge of my seat is, and part of this is an experience you can only take on the first viewing. Part of it is just the way my brain was just kind of trying to outsmart itself. But knowing that Andrew Lincoln was going to be on The Talking Dead, knowing how much emphasis they put on Rick in this episode, showing him on the journey of who he was in the flashback, and then what was going on in the present, the fact that he kind of loosened up to Daryl. I fully expected Rick to bite it in this episode, and not knowing if that was going to happen or not happen really just kind of in my own mind amped up the tension for me. But again, I like where Rick is at the end of this episode. To me, I didn't feel let down by this as a season finale. I mean, you have almost all of your heroes trapped in a train car, surrounded by guns, and instead of just being like, oh no, what are we going to do? Rick is like, no, we have the advantage, they have the disadvantage, and then cut there. I thought was genius. To me, it felt like a true cliffhanger season finale, more so than we've gotten in the past. I mean, end of season 1, it wasn't really a cliffhanger. End of season 2, we kind of got the dictatorship thing. End of season 3, it kind of sort of had its resolution. So I was just, I can see where you guys are coming from, like the end of the half season. What was a cliffhanger? With everything in disarray. But I just like where this episode took us. I'm okay with not knowing everything there is to know about Terminus at this point. I think that's great to give us something to speculate about. I think it's interesting to kind of go back and watch this episode again and pick things apart. I think it gives the writing staff time to make sure they get it right and don't feel like they kind of have to rush into it. Maybe kind of gauge audience reaction, see what people felt worked and what didn't, and be able to tweak it. So to me, this was just a perfect episode for me. I mean, there've been a lot of good episodes this half season. I think in the 8 before the break, I think there were a few that were clunkers, particularly the Governor episodes. But to me, this thing just fired on all cylinders, and I couldn't be happier.
Just real quick, I didn't mention my thoughts on it as a season finale, but I agree with what Russ had to say. From a conceptual level, I agree that it being a Rick-focused episode, I liked how it ended the season with the way it did and where we're left at.
I'm also with Russ on this one. I will give it 5 Busters. I'm tempted to take off a 0.05 or something for my minor quibbles, but just the feeling of the episode in general. I'm kind of, I think, the anti-Ashley on this one, and that my anxiety was, riding a very high line for the vast majority of this episode. And to also go anti-Brad a little bit, and echo what Russ said, Brad, I think it was you saying, this isn't an episode that, as a season finale, that makes you, fist pump or I've got to see what happens next. I think this is the first season finale of the show that makes me go, oh my gosh, I've got to see what happens next. Maybe with season 2 being kind of a somewhat distant second with the, the dictatorship, that kind of thing. I like that there's no finality to it. I like that it's your heroes are in a terrible situation, but they're ready to fight back, and you don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of questions, there's a lot to discuss and theorize about in the off-season, whereas a lot of those other season finales, it was just, we beat the bad guy, and a few people died, but, pretty much what's next season going to be? And not only just what's next season going to be, how long are we going to be in prison, how long are we going to be, whatever. This season finale, I don't know what the next half season's going to be. And they talked about that in Talking Dead a little bit, how the show's going to kind of reinvent itself to a certain extent, and how they tried to do that in the past as well. But I really don't know what's coming next. I can theorize from stuff in the comics, I can guess at, which characters are more popular, so there's less chance that they're going to die, but there's just a wealth of possibilities of what could come in the next half season, and to me, that really excites me. Like I said, I didn't have those few minor quibbles, but the feeling the episode gave me in general really does bring us up to a 5. But Jim, what did our listeners on Facebook have to say about this episode? How many busters did they give it on the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group, which you should all join now if you haven't already checked it out?
Absolutely. There's a lot of discussion and cool things. We have the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group for mostly non-spoiler stuff, and then we have the Stuff and Things offshoot.
Thank you.
I just said it the right way that time?
You get a gold star, Jim.
That Leslie and Mike set up that is totally spoilerific. So if you enjoy the the show but don't mind the spoilers, you can check out both. And but a lot of good discussion, a lot of news, a lot of theories, all kinds of stuff there on the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group. You definitely want to join in. We have a lot of comments this time. Everybody, of course, watched the season finale. Gary Anderson, 4.5 out of 5. Spurting Jugulars, very tense, awesome episode. Kind of expecting a bit more than they just after the wrong bull line to finish things off. Yeah, I kind of agree with that, Gary. Brian Arnold, 4.5 badass Ricks. Great episode with balance of thrills, action, and character moments. Leslie Johnson, I got to go with a full 5 out of 5 here. The scene with the Claimed Gang was amazing. It was so good in the comic, but seeing it in the flesh was so much more amazing. Terry Bernard, 4.6 Busters. Kudos to them on a great season. Everard Santa Maria, I'll give it a 4.5. You brought Herschel back to give the farming backstory out of 5. The components about 10 Busters for the Claimed Gang resolution and a little mesh, 3.5 for the rest of it. So he's kind of bipolar like Brad was. Brent Jones loved it, 4.5. You're my brother out of 5. When Joe showed up, actually got butterflies. 5 Walker impersonations out of 5 for Robert Negro for How the Claimers. Story ended with 3 Shrine Candles for 5 for all else. Susan Monk, 4.75 out of 5. Termite Mazes. I do like that Termite. No, I like that a lot. Pamela Bird, I give it a 5. I really liked it. But I wonder what exactly happened to Beth. I think we all do. Mike Jones, 4. Sloppy Joes out of 5. Shouldn't those be Sloppy Beths, Mike? Andrew Lincoln knocked it out of the park, but no major deaths. Felt like an episode of Lost at times. I wouldn't know. Somebody named Brad Milo wrote in and says, what a letdown. I feel cheated. We expected a revelation about tournaments. We only got clues. Boy, I don't know who this Brad is, but 3.5 grilled buttocks.
Is that his middle name?
Yes. Jimmy Tucker, 4.75 Cannibal Train Cars out of 5. I thought this was a great episode, and the ending was good considering we're all expecting the worst. Mike Jones also says, I think Carol and Tyrese to the rescue will be next season. That'll be interesting. 5 out of 5 Snappers on the Wall from Sarah and Howard. 5 out of 5 Rick Hickey's from Vincent DeCoste. We got 4 out of 5 Small Rabbits from Max Silver. Great episode. I love the end dialogue. But the episode loses a full point for hype. Ezra Mack, 4.5 Flashbacks took away 10 minutes of valuable time out of 5. 4.5 Sterling Green as People. Terrified Screams out of 5 for David P. III. Leo Cavallo, 4.5 out of 5 Piles of Human Ribs and Spines. Yes, we love those. 3 out of 5 obviously Missing on Purpose Snipers. The episode was okay, but the ending didn't seem like a season finale to me. I agree with that. 4 out of 5 is a standalone episode, but as a finale, I give it a generous 3, says Shane Jenkins. Philip Hurd, 3.5 T-Dogs. That's the Rick I'm talking about. Roger Austin, 3.5 Slabs of Grilled Mystery Meat. Trisha Terrell Collins, 4 Herschel Sage Advices out of 5. 4.5 for Elisa Gonzalez. I really love the parallel storytelling. Mike Jones was kind of to post that picture of all the bones on the tarp as well, so that was good. 4.5 Grilled Judith Ribs. Brandy Lobster. Ugh. No, let's not go there. 4
baby back.
Oh, come on, jump in my belly.
Chilies.
4 Roadkill Zombies out of 5 for Samantha Joppy. 4 possibly Raped Carls out of 5 from Linda Clark Week. 2.5 Pile of Bones out of 5 from Chubtoad. This was such a disappointment. Well, there's some good moments in the episode. It was not worthy of a season finale. Adam Fatagas is 3.5 Flashbacks out of 5. McMuse, just to be different, gives us an A solid B+. Using your own grading system, I guess that'd be like a 4 or 3.5 out of Busters. 4 out of 5 Puppet Bunnies from Ian Timms. That was one of the best season endings of Lost I've ever seen. Yeah, we are kind of all over the board with this. I mean, there's just people who just thought it was knocked out of the park, and some people didn't think as much. Richard Chopper Cherry Charrington, and I love saying that name. Well, just finishing the UK, I've got to give that 4.75 or 4.75 plates of barbecued meat out of 5. I do love good barbecue. Carl Hooker, 4.75 medium well steaks out of 5. 4.5 Busters from Don Heffron, intense episode all the way through. 5 Busters, so glad Daryl lived from Sean Bessie Vega, who drew those great pictures of the entire Walking Dead podcast crew. We still appreciate those. And like I said, if you want to join our group on Facebook, a lot of good discussion, a lot of cool pictures, news, all kinds of great things. We have a lot of cool fans in our group. It's the Walking Dead TV podcast group on Facebook.
So that's what our listeners thought of the episode. Russ, what did the Nielsens think of this episode?
They were pretty much blown away. Again, this set a season finale record, not a series record for The Walking Dead. That went to the season 4 opener, but this is the highest rating finale. So again, the show just continues to baffle everyone like the comic does and rise in the ratings in general instead of fall over time. So this episode averaged 15.7 million total viewers, and it was up 27% from the last episode of season 3. So that's a huge boost from season over season. It pulled 10.2 million viewers in the 18 to 49, which is that key demographic, which is just phenomenal. It's pretty crazy how many viewers the show attracts. And The Talking Dead, I thought this was funny too. The Talking Dead did really well. And I think a lot of that just had to do with Andrew Lincoln. I think that show in general, people just enjoy Hardwick style and the guests that he has on. Sometimes when he just has a couple random comedians on. To me,
sometimes it's Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, and then you have that. But The Talking Dead, The Talking Dead drew 7.3 million viewers with a 3.7 rating in the adults 18 to 49, which again, a 3.7 for basically a show that talks about another show is pretty crazy. I mean, there's a ton of high quality network TV television shows that don't get anywhere near a 3.7. So this thing's just a juggernaut. I mean, it's 4th season and it's not slowing down at all. It's picking up. So unless this just has a kind of weird fall off or strange phenomenon, I mean, I don't see the show slowing down anytime soon.
Especially when you went on a cliffhanger such as this.
Yeah. So 2 bits of news before we close out the show and go into some speculation for next season. The first would be the cast updates. And Aaron, I think you had that information in front of you. So who is getting bumped up to a season regular or series regular, and who is being bumped up to a also starring?
I'm not sure about the difference between the two in terms of
Money.
what's well, no, in terms of what's official, what's truly official. I have Alana Masterson who plays Tara. She along with Christian Serratos who plays Rosita, and Gareth Andrew J. West who plays Gareth. All of them have been promoted to series regulars as opposed to just guest starring roles. So we're going to see a lot more of them next season. We're not sure about Abraham and Eugene as of yet. I doubt
They've been bumped up to also starring, I believe, as opposed to just guest
that makes more sense. Well, I'll be curious what the opening credits look like since I'm never quite sure until I actually see it.
And you also have some news, Aaron, about the special edition of the Blu-ray for season 4. I haven't actually seen what it looks like, so can you describe it for our listeners?
Yes, I can. As with every season of The Walking Dead, we're getting kind of like along with the regular Blu-ray edition, you get the limited edition set that has some kind of key design that you saw within the season. So of course, and we have the governor's heads for season 3. This season we have the tree walker. If you recall, there's that walker that's kind of overgrown with the tree around him. That's going to serve as kind of the holder for the season 4 limited edition Blu-ray, and it looks pretty cool. Again, not practical for people that like to have organized Blu-ray shelves, but for people that want to have collectible little items from The Walking Dead, that's the way to go.
And I'm sure we'll get lots more information on the special features, how many does, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there are no features announced as of yet, but yeah, it'll be in due time.
So let's head into the outro for the episode, and of course, stick around if you'd like after that, and we'll just talk about some speculation we have for next season and some theories we might have. You can leave us a voicemail. Tell us, what did you think about the season finale? We'd love to know in greater detail than just a funny Buster rating. You can call us at 972-798-3830. That's 972-798-3830. And let us know you're calling for the Walking Dead TV podcast and tell us about your thoughts for the finale. Or you can send us a text, email, or an MP3 to comments@walkingdeadtv.com. Check out hhwlod.com for all of our great shows like Half Hour Wasted with Brad and occasionally his daughter, The Long Box of Doom, Black Box, Out Now with Aaron and Abe, Jersey Shore, the Ichabod Cranecast, Shaken Not Stirred, and a whole bunch of other great stuff. And hey, do us a favor while you're checking them out, because there's so much great content. We would really appreciate an iTunes review, a 5-star iTunes rating, or whatever you think is appropriate. Those things go to great lengths to help getting the word out about the show and to getting us even more listeners that we can have lots of fun communication with. So we'd really appreciate that, particularly in the off season. You can follow us on Twitter at WDTV Podcast and at HHWLOD_network. And so until there's no more room in hell in the dead walk the earth, remember, earmuffs Ashley, they don't know who they're fucking with. Have a great week, everybody.
Oh, I know.
I'm sure Ashley's never heard that word ever.
I assume you'll bleep that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yes. That was more for Brad's benefit than Ashley's. So this is not going to be spoilers, because obviously we don't know where this is going. This is, in many ways, a departure from the comic, although maybe hinting to some things from the comic as well. There's speculation that these are cannibals, but we don't really know 100% for sure, and Kirkman has come out and said that a lot of people may be way off from what they're expecting, particularly with a lot of stuff about Beth. So what do we think? Carol, Tyrese, Judith, they're missing. Beth is missing. We've got the mysterious car with the cross in the window that kidnapped her from the funeral home, and we've got the rest of our cast trapped in a train car. What happens next?
As far as Beth goes, I think that's a whole other thing. I think we got that whole funeral home church thing, and there's a car with cross running off with Beth. I think it's a whole other thing that's going to be dealt with at some point in the show. I don't think that has anything with Turner at all.
And I think I mostly agree with you. I would have totally bought it that they were, but where it ended now, I really don't think it was. I think they would have very clearly established that it was her on the grill if it was her on the grill. To do it next season in retrospect would just seem silly.
Well, it's more, and it's like, I mean, Terminus is essentially a spider web. Like, they're not going out to get things, they're waiting for things to come to them. I don't see, like, cars randomly driving around to, like, find, like, other people that aren't following these explicit signs and radio signals. Like, it's whatever.
What do we think about the weird death cultish candle room?
You got me.
I thought that, I mean, the only thing I think with that is just something happened that caused a bunch of people that were in this group to die because it's like never again and stuff like that. Or I don't know if maybe they had to eat their own to survive. And so, that was the whole never again, that they're going to rely on people coming from the outside to survive.
Kind of Donner Party type situation?
Yeah, hard to say. I mean, I'm kind of on the bandwagon that they're cannibals, and I could be way off base, but that's just what I think. But I don't know. The one thing I will say is, and this would be good for a flashback thing, the whole time that we saw Michonne and Carl, we didn't see what Rick and Daryl were doing. Like, they were kind of off, and I'm wondering if maybe it's possible that they came across Tyrese and Carol and told them to hang back, and then they buried the gun. Told them we're going to bury the guns, and maybe that's kind of a rabbit that Rick may pull out of his hat to try and get them to think that this that the Terminus group is maybe outgunned, even though they don't know they're not outgunned. I don't know. It just seemed odd that Tyrese and Carol didn't show up in this episode at all. Although I kind of had a conversation with somebody about this yesterday that they kind of it made it seem like when they were stuck at the house that they were there for several days, and so that they may be a couple days behind, which kind of blows my theory on them talking to Rick and Daryl. But something tells me there's something else going on that we just don't know about.
My only thought on Carol and Tyrese as far as that goes is I feel like this episode it's a Rick journey episode, and adding Carol and Tyrese to it just feels like it'd be an overstuffed episode of characters, and especially ones that we're not explicitly focused on. And with that previous episode that they were involved in, that was really the end of their arc for the season. There's really no reason to introduce them beyond just saying, hey, they're also coming, but we already know that they're on their way. So it's assuming that there's that's not the case of them like secretly being involved with Rick or whatever. Right? I feel like there was no necessary need to include them here because we finished up the story that they were telling for those characters this season already. So it's like all we need to know is that they're on their way, which is what was established at the end of that episode.
And we certainly didn't see any of their belongings among the camp, or at least not explicitly noted on screen, to make us think that they'd gotten there first. Or
no one was wearing Tyrese's beanie, that's for sure.
Or a baby Bjorn.
How creepy would that be? They had
Just a baby Bjorn, no baby in it. Yeah.
Because of a barbecue. Any other theories, speculation?
It's an open book.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll have the whole off season to discuss this. Like we already said, we'd love to get emails and voicemails and Facebook messages from everybody. What do you think is going on here? And we'd love to discuss that in a future episode, and we will certainly have time to do so. So luckily, there's a lot of stuff to unpack because we'll have the opportunity to do it.
I think some commentaries done too.
Oh yes, yeah. Let us know, ladies and gentlemen, who are listening to this section, what episodes from the season would you like to see commentaries for? Which were your favorite ones? I know there's a lot of, to use the word of the night, bipolarity, I guess, of what people liked and didn't like. So which episodes would you want to see commentaries for, and which ones would you absolutely not want to see commentaries for? Let us know. But I think with that said, that's it for this episode and for this season of The Walking Dead, and we'll be back soon with even more discussion, but probably won't be next Monday. So have a great week, everybody.
So long.
Remember, it's Ringleader, Archer, Samurai, in that order.
I almost did that as my remember thing, but
It's a good D&D combo.
yes, it is. So is Carl the cleric, or
He's a troll.
The dwarf.
Point Brad?
Recording.
Ba-da-da-da-da.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Recording.
Yes, I did.
You ever be like the countdown clock on every bomb in every 10th Thriller movie? It counts down 30 seconds. It takes like a half hour to count it down.
That's the
We should just do the 24 sound clip. Beep.
I gotta say that
Say
for
something.
the podcast I'm gonna do.
Oh,
You're gonna have to talk a little louder now.
Is this loud enough?
Whoa,
Whoa,
yes, Miles.
okay. Whoa. Well, hold your horses.
Yeah.
You have horses.
Okay.
My grandma has horses.
Jordan.
Yes,
I
sir.
wrote down two things that we should mention. Just like, these are news items. One is the Walking Dead Blu-ray, the Tree Walker. and the other is the series.
The Tree
Yeah,
Walker.
the
I don't know.
Blu-ray case is the Tree Walker for season 4's Blu-ray.
One where the tree grew around the walker,
Yeah, that one.
Oh, okay.
which
Gotcha.
is extremely unplausible, by the way.
Yeah, right. And the other
fast-growing tree.
thing I wrote is the 3 new cast members or 3 cast members promoted to like series regulars.
And that's Eugene,
It's
Mustache, and
it's
Podcast.
not Adrian actually. It was
Oh, it was Gareth.
it
Right.
was Gareth. What's her name? Rosita of all people, and
Right,
and,
Christina.
yeah, and Tara.
All right, this episode is titled A. Aside from my theory from last week, does anybody have any idea why it was titled A?
All the
No,
container
USA.
they put in was A.
Oh, yeah,
the box.
box.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
I didn't
called
know
that.
that.
Yeah, it was like there's like signs like with arrows pointing to the different ones. There's like a B box and a C box. There's the other in the A box.
Gotcha. Okay.
Granted, I watched it like 3 times. I watched it twice.
I watched it twice, but I still missed
Right,
that
in
part.
review.
We age our prisoners to perfection here at Terminus Farms.
Yes.
So we get that right, delicious cure that our customers demand in their barbecue.
Can you maybe split the 2 personalities into Brad and Chad? Because that would make me extremely happy.
No, Chad Brilo is contractually obligated to appear only on Half Hour Wasted.
Oh, that is a
Yeah,
crying
really,
shame.
really sorry for that.
How about you, Grant? Can we have you, Grant?
How could they afford
All
that?
initiated, aren't we, Brad? That was a bad Bane impression. Sorry.
Really bad.
Yeah.
I love those scenes between Bane and Harvey Dent in Dark Knight. Those are great
This
scenes.
episode's off to a great start.
Oh, so much of this.
Batman podcast.
Bloopers. Any more 80s references before I continue?
That was the 90s, mate.
Was it?